let's talk about, I mean, the benefits both for somebody who, an owner who really is looking, ahead and hopefully giving themselves, several years to do that,
Yeah.
or someone who's much younger and practicing, thinking, why do I need to do that now? I'm not going to sell for a long time. So
Yeah.
there's benefits for both sides. What are those? What do you see those primary benefits being?
Well, I think the number one rule is we need to change our mind shift. Like exit planning is business planning. It is Stephen Covey 101, begin with the end in mind. So if you don't know where you're going, anywhere will do. But when you think about questions of how big should my team be? What is my service mix? All of those things that quite honestly, those questions get answered on the trade show floor at conferences. Oh, I saw this lecture and it was amazing, and they gave me a great deal on this new piece of equipment. I don't even have to name the equipment. It's any new shiny object, and then you go back and you say, I don't have the right team to do this thing. And I didn't budget for training, ergo, it sits in the corner. So you're going along and making decisions about the business anyway. Why not have a path and a strategy? So if you're a builder, you think about the final product, right? And you work with an architect and you blueprint it, then you grade the dirt, then you pour the foundation. I think a lot of times dental business owners buy the practice, rightfully so. They don't go in and make a lot of changes up front. They don't want to upset the team or the patients. They want to get their feet wet. But then that mindset carries forward for like 5 years. Oh, I didn't want to upset Martha, who already retired, and I still, so inertia can take place. Um, it's going to, and I would say this, building on the principles of an investment grade practice do two things. Number one, it makes your practice very predictable. And predictability, I think, as a marketer, because that's another one of my little degrees that I slipped in there is marketing. The number one thing you can do for marketing is build bridges of trust. And the way you build a bridge of trust is to have certainty. Certainty comes from continuity and consistency. So when your systems are consistent, your team loves it because they know what their job is. So you don't have a lot of team turnover. Your patients love it because they know what they can count on. Predictability is the first step, but predictability doesn't always get you best value when you sell. There's another question I love to ask, and that is, oh, go back to when you were a full-time dentist and answer this question. I've never asked you this question, David. How long could you leave your practice
Mm.
and know for sure that it was going to run as well or better with you away as it is when you were there?
Yeah, that I asked the same thing, and so 20 plus years ago, I'm gonna keep this short. I actually had to test that, and not go into my story, but I had to finally test that because I hadn't tested it before. I did
Right.
have an associate, so it wasn't all about me. But I always thought, I'm the answer man. I'm the senior doc, so I have to be there, right? That's what we think. And when my daughter was very, very sick, I was actually compelled to be out of the practice for chunks of a time. No, not 3 months, but let's say longer than a standard vacation. And that's when I found that, yeah, did I have everything perfect and set up? No, by no means. But it did show me that I did have much more capable staff and associate than I gave them credit for. And
Yep.
shame on me because I wasn't really doing a good job of empowering those who I had. Not because I didn't want them to do well. I wanted the associate to do well. I always wondered why the associate didn't why didn't rise in production. Well, I am subconsciously sabotaging them because I'd always show up, right? I'm always, let me just look over your shoulder. Let me just check that patient for you,
Yeah.
Dr. Associate. Come on, how do you ever grow? So I did test that. It did work to a point, but to your point, I didn't have all the systems and places and team and mindset shift in place that today I would know better on what needed to be done. So I'm going to
Yeah.
give it right back to you. Yeah.
That's a fun part of building an investment grade practice. As your productivity grows and you start to expand and then you bring on the associate, we actually do mandatory out of the office every 6 weeks. So there's a big
Good.
bonus in it because you need to start practicing how to be a business owner,
Right.
not simply a producer and provider. Because until you can see a vision outside your practice, like, wow, that trip to Italy really was nice. So first we give you administrative time, like a Wednesday afternoon, and somebody else is going to have to do that work. Production can't fall, but you're going to learn how to keep your production high, working less. Then you learn how to make the whole practice run well with you there less. It compels you to raise up the second generation of providers, the second generation of departmental leaders. It compels you, and I think this is one of the biggest mistake office practice owners make, is the person that you trust needs to be verified. So there's still a lot of embezzlement, there's still a lot of complacency, and there's a lot of fear on doctors' part of confronting that. And so if you haven't stress test your office manager, your bookkeeper, those that are touching the money, you end up working really, really hard. And you're like, oh my God, why can't I pay my bills? And you ask the team, and they go, daggum insurance companies. They just all these write-offs and adjustments. What can we do?
Right.
Well, you can do an audit trail report and see if you really all of that was insurance adjustments or not. So it weeds out corruption. It gets the team on board, aligned with where you're at, and it gives you one of those personal freedoms, which is time.
Yes.
So whether you're retiring next year or a decade from now, whether you're thinking about partnering with PE, that's another misnomer. I'm just gonna sell my practice to name the alphabet
Mm.
of DSOs, and I'm gonna kick back and do nothing. Well, that doesn't work either because they actually expect you to have that type of leadership in place. Their governing document says there must be demonstrated leadership at the practice level. So if you
Yes.
haven't built demonstrated leadership and then you sell, well, if your EBITDA drops or your production drops, well, you hell hath no fury like a DSO breathing down your neck to get it up. You just thought there was pressure when you had to pull money out of your savings account to pay the payroll. When you've got, somebody from Wall Street looking at your checkbook, it's a
Mm.
whole different story. So people they're not ready for it. Now, I'm not saying that partnering with a DSO is wrong. I think there's some great partnerships out there, particularly for those who have demonstrated leadership. They've built these durable systems. They have that personal freedom within the framework. Um, you and I were talking earlier about self governance and understanding what's correct for you. That's where you start with all of this.